Hello and welcome back to the channel this evening. My name is Andy, back with another race review from the Formula 1 2018 season, round 19, the Mexican Grand Prix. And what an interesting race it was in terms of just looking at the race itself, but of course I might as well just throw it out the window. Spoilers if you've not seen it, you probably know already though. But it's finally confirmed Lewis Hamilton is a 5-time Formula 1 Drivers' World Champion. In 2008, 2014, 2015, 2017 and 2018 now finally confirmed for the Mercedes driver, but we'll get onto it in more detail in just a second. I always want to go through the full weekend, of course, to start with. So we'll start with the build-up. Main news that I'd caught during the build-up was, number one, Haas announced a title sponsorship with Hype energy drinks. Now, I'd mentioned in my last video at Austin's last race in the US Grand Prix last week, they were at the venue and were seen talking to Williams, but it would seem that they have now agreed a deal to be Haas's title sponsorship from next season, and their colours are black and gold, so a bit of a hark back to the JPS Lotus colours, maybe in order for next season possibly. The other part I caught was Toro Rosso are not likely to announce the second driver to partner, to be in the seat, at Toro Rosso. Apologies, they've not even announced anyone yet, have they? But they're not likely to announce that until after the season's done, so a long wait for Brendan Hartley to see if he's going to be partnering Daniel Kvyat, because I've just remembered that the Torpedo is going to be back next year. So they're not going to announce that until the end of the season, likely. So I don't think Hartley will be there, I'm afraid to say. He's a good driver, but I think he'll be back to World Endurance Championships for long. Anyway, on to practice. Now, it was quite an interesting weekend because practice was quite colder than they were expecting. The qualifying Saturday was quite similar, and then the race was extremely hotter than it had been, so it caused a bit of issue. But Red Bull showing that here, 2,200 metres above sea level in Mexico City, where the air is thinner because of the higher altitude, the engine power not quite as big of an advantage as it is anywhere else, meaning that they were totally on par, and Max Verstappen took P1 and free practice 1, 2 and 3. Mercedes and Ferrari struggled, especially in P1 and FP2, with the Renaults getting up there, and even Brendan Hartley being ahead of one or two of them as well in FP2. When we came on to FP3, the Ferraris and Mercedes had made up ground to the Red Bulls, but it was still the Milton Keynes team that were up front. And one of the main issues that were coming up through practice was the hyper soft tyres, the pink mark tyres, and many of them running them out within 10 laps, and just, words of them being like chewing gum basically. So that was going to be an interesting part for the race. We also seen in FP3 Valtteri Bottas pull over to the side early doors in FP3 while the track was still a bit wet due to morning rain. It was determined it was a hydraulic issue, but thankfully for the Finn, he didn't have to take an engine penalty, even though he had to swap the engine out, so he was quite lucky in that part to not have to suffer there. Into qualifying itself, Q1 seen both the Williams go out, unsurprising. Stoffel Van Dorn go out, I'm afraid to say, unsurprising. The 12th time in a row he's been out in Q1, and I think it's the 23rd time in a row he's been out qualified by Alonso, so I like Stoffel, I think he is a good driver, but it's easy to see why he's been let go for the end of the year in place of Sainz and Lando Norris. But the surprise was how much the Haas team were struggling this weekend. Both of them out in Q1. I think it's the first time that's happened this season, I think, in fact, that both of them have gone out. Can't quite remember off the top of my head, but yeah, didn't quite expect to see that. Q2 seen both the Force Indias go out. They were playing the tactical game, knowing it was going to be about tyres, so they both went out in Q2, along with both Toro Rossos, with Gasly have an engine change, taking his 8th engine of the season, can you believe? And Fernando Alonso also out in Q2. And in Q3 we basically had a 6-way shootout for the top 3 teams, both of their drivers in contention. Many expected Max Verstappen to take the pole, having dominated the weekend so far and become the youngest pole sitter in F1 history. Because you've got to remember, Max has never taken pole position yet, which is a surprise stat I'd forgot about until this weekend. But no, Daniel Ricciardo, just when you didn't expect it, 3/100ths of a second faster, just sneaking it over his teammate, with Hamilton in third, Vettel fourth, and the two Finns in fifth and sixth, Hulkenberg and Sainz in the fourth row, and Leclerc and Ericsson rounding out the top 10 as the cars almost went in 2 by 2 behind the top 3. Then we move on to the race. Now, the big talk was the run down to turn 1. Red Bull first front row lockout since the US Grand Prix of 2013, I think it was, at that race, certainly since 2013. 890 metre run down to turn 1, the longest run on the calendar by a long, long way. And it was such a run down to turn 1 as well. Verstappen got a great start, Hamilton got a flyer off of P3, Ricciardo got bogged down, and Hamilton split the Red Bulls and got in between. Verstappen was able to hold it, but it was a great helicopter shot in the replay, and you had the top 7 basically bunched so close together, Hulkenberg on the end of that as well. It's a fantastic shot, but it meant that Ricciardo dropped from pole down to P3. Verstappen leaded from Hamilton. Raikkonen lost out to both Carlos Sainz and Nico Hulkenberg through the first lot of corners, but he made it back up by the end of lap 2, so he was back into 6th. Bottas Vettel managed to get past Bottas. A little bit of a bump of wheels, and for the first time in a while, wheel-to-wheel contact between Vettel and another driver, and he doesn't spin. So maybe they fixed that problem, I don't know. But it wasn't a straight line, so maybe it was a wee bit harder to spin. But that meant it was, the top 6 as expected. Behind them, Ocon had hit the back of, I believe it was Nico Hulkenberg's car. He said it was Sainz in the radio. Damaged his front wing. Now the wing then broke off and spewed across the track and got lodged in between the side pod of Fernando Alonso's car, who had gone round the curb and off the track slightly to avoid the melee that was happening in front of him. And that was to have a knock-on effect as well in just a few laps. But before that, Ocon obviously pitted with his damaged wing. Hartley also pitted at the end of lap 1. I think he'd picked up a wee knock as well. But it was just a bit of carnage going on. And as I say, Alonso got the wing stuck, and then he retired on lap 5. I'm still not sure what the reason is. Probably an overheat or a piece of the wing got lodged into the engine of the radiator bay. He was out in lap 5. It deployed the first virtual safety car we've seen for the race. No one in the top 10 pitted though, and the race resumed within a couple of laps. Hamilton, though, a few laps later on lap 8 on the radio, complaining about the tyres. You could see visible marks in the front left as well. So it was really not what we were expecting, because we were expecting the ultra softs they should be able to run longer, but because of the higher temperatures in the race compared to practice, where they had cooler run-ins, so they weren't wearing up as quick, this was obviously causing problems, and it was quite quick to see that it was predominantly probably going to be a 2-stop race from that point on. But yeah, we didn't see too much. The cars were keeping out of the slipstream. They were trying to keep the temperatures from going too high, and most of the action was behind. Lap 11, we've seen local hero Sergio Perez, his home race, trying to pass Ericsson for P10 into turn 1, and then again into P4 at the end of both DRS zones, but Ericsson holding them off at that particular time. At the end of that lap, also we've seen Hamilton and Bottas both pitting, Mercedes double stacking the drivers. They both went from the ultra soft to the red super soft tyres, and that put them both back out down the field. Hamilton came back out in P5 ahead of Hulkenberg, while Bottas was in P8 behind both Hulkenberg and Charles Leclerc after his pit stop. Ricciardo pitted on lap 12, going on to super softs. He rejoined P5. Hulkenberg also pitted, came out in P13. Bottas was now up to P6, and Verstappen finally pitted from the lead on lap 13. Put the super softs on, came out in P3, as both Ferraris were still not to pit. So it was Vettel leading Raikkonen at this point. So Verstappen technically still in the lead of the race, albeit not technically properly, because obviously the Ferraris hadn't stopped yet. They decided to run a bit longer, trying to see if they could maybe make a one-stopper work. Lap 14, or next lap after all of that pit stop action, we got a huge roar come out of the crowd as Perez finally got past Ericsson into turn 1, round the outside, deep on the brakes, and just behind him we also seen Sainz passing Magnussen, as well as Sainz came back through the field after he had also made his pit stop as well. Lap 15, Verstappen passed Raikkonen under DRS, moving up to P2. He had to make that move quick while these tyres were fresh, not to get held up. We remember what happened to Hamilton last week in Austin, where he got held up for a good number of laps by Raikkonen. It cost him the race in the end. Yeah, moves Verstappen up to P2. We also seen Hülkenberg passing Magnussen as he comes back through after his own stop as well. The Haas cars running long stints. Lap 17, Hamilton got past Raikkonen through turn 1, 2 and 3. It was a very brave move from Hamilton, considering obviously that he just had to finish in the top 7 to win the championship, but he went for it and he got it done, so good on him. It was a really nice move. Ricciardo followed him through though, put Raikkonen down to P5. Vettel pitted at the end of lap 17. He rejoined in P4 on Supersofts. Raikkonen also pitted the same lap, rejoining in P6. Most of the action passing wise at this point was in the middle of the field, with Charles Leclerc passing Grosjean on lap 18 up to P11. Leclerc had pitted, Grosjean hadn't at this point, having come from the back of the field. Remember, Grosjean did have a 3-place grid penalty from last week after crashing into Leclerc, funnily enough, in Austin. In lap 21 we've seen it was Verstappen 8 seconds ahead of Hamilton, who was 3 seconds ahead of Ricciardo. But on the TV we were watching Leclerc, Grosjean, Hartley, Ocon, Gasly and Van Dorn. That was P11 to P16, all following each other on a train, but none of them could finally get by the other in that time. Eventually they did obviously move about, of course, but when we were watching we didn't see anything. On lap 25 we've seen a slightly worrying moment for a second. It was a replay of Stroll coming out of the pit lane, out his pit stop, and he actually caught one of the mechanics working on his right rear tyre, and didn't look like it was too bad a hit. The mechanic did seem to be getting back up, was okay. I've not heard anything else. I do hope the mechanic was okay, and I think he was, but again, I've not heard anything myself during the commentary. And Hamilton was front left, was not looking good at all. The Mercedes really wearing through their tyres very much. You could see the visible line on the front left tyre, visible line through at the graining, and it was meaning he couldn't quite get the speed he wanted. But behind him, Ricciardo was also having a little bit of a struggle as well with his tyres. But the teams both reminded the drivers that the likes of Perez and the Haas drivers had started on the Supersofts from the start of the race. They had a similar graining phase around about 12, 14, 15 laps in, and it came back again towards the end, so to stick with it. And for Ricciardo especially, it was looking like it was going to work an absolute treat for the Aussie. Hamilton, though, not liking those tyres at all. Verstappen was obviously leading and lapped all the way up to P10 before half distance. By the end of the race, I'm going to cut to it now, he'd lapped everybody up to P5, which was Bottas. We'll come to that. But everyone else from Hülkenberg down, from P6 down, 2 laps down. I know it's a short track, but gee whiz, come on. And just, wow, amazing. Sainz retired on lap 31, brought out another virtual safety car just as Vettel was lining up Ricciardo for a pass down the front straight. Tantalising moment. We then got a replay from Verstappen's on board, and it looks like the rear's just locked up going into the stadium section on the Renault, and they pulled off. And I think we got word on it. They're still looking at it at the moment, but basically the power unit just shut down on the Spaniard, so it was both Spaniards out of the race by that point. Perez pitted during the virtual safety car, and that finally got him off those super soft tyres. Ocon pitted as well, because although he had pitted already on lap 1, he had basically ran from the start of the race on those tyres. Perez came out in P9, Ocon was out in P16, Vettel was right behind Ricciardo as the virtual safety car ended, but Ricciardo able to get a jump and a good run out the last corner. He kept that Ferrari behind him, and there was not much that Vettel could do despite having a 7 mile an hour speed advantage at that point. But it only took a couple of laps, because then the speed advantage with DRS came into effect on lap 34 and Sebastian Vettel was past Daniel Ricciardo. They both got past Perez and Leclerc as well just during that point, who were fighting ahead of him, and Ricciardo wasn't too chuffed on the radio. He felt that those two had impeded him, and that meant that Vettel was able to get past the Red Bull driver. Perez was able to get move done on Leclerc, but he had to do it the next lap round, unfortunately, because Leclerc got back past him. But that got him up to P8. It was around the outside as well. He seemed to like that around the outside move into turn 1. But it was definitely good, and obviously you heard the roar once again from the vocal home crowd cheering on Checo in his home race. Lap 39, we've seen Vettel quickly catching Hamilton, posting fastest laps as well, and he got past Hamilton into turn 1 under DRS as well, which was probably a bit of a bittersweet moment for the German, knowing that obviously it still wasn't enough to keep the championship running. And then on lap 40, Perez pulled into the pits, into the garage, out of the race. It's a shame. He was up, I think he was P7 at the time he retired. Looking for him for good points, trying to go at one stopper, but brake failure. We've seen a replay of him locking up into turn 1, and he's had no brakes left at all. So he pulled into the pits end of the lap, and that was a shame for the home crowd, hoping to see a good result from their man on the day. We only seen replay on the TV, but I did anyway, which showed Ocon and Hartley having a bit of a ding-dong battle. Ocon losing another bit of his wing again, Hartley getting damage to the left side of his floor. It was a bit sticking out. Eventually it did fall off. Nothing happened, although they both blamed each other, but the stewards looked at it, racing incident, no action. And lap 45 had Ricciardo all over the back of Hamilton. The Red Bull driver had caught up to the Mercedes. Hamilton really struggling on the super soft tyres at this point. But you've got to remember that at this point, both Hamilton and Ricciardo were 20 seconds behind Verstappen in P1. That's just how much struggling Hamilton had with those tyres, and just how quick Max Verstappen was this weekend. Incredible. We've finally seen Magnussen and Grosjean pit on lap 45 and 46. They had ran from the start of the race, remember, from near the back, so they'd gone super softs to ultra softs. And then on lap 47, Ricciardo's got a run on Hamilton down into turn 1, pulls to the outside as Hamilton defends the inside, but then Hamilton locks up into turn 1, has to take to the grass in the escape road. The Aussies got through into P3, Hamilton down to P4, and then we heard Hamilton on the radio, these tyres are dead. They were just done, he had nothing left. And then what made it even more interesting is not long after, in a bit, Bottas basically copied him. But we'll come to that in just a second, because we did see a Vettel jump into the pits at the end of that lap 47, go from P2 down, rejoined in P3, he went on to the ultra softs. Hamilton pitted, he was to go on a used set of ultra softs, he had no new set, so he rejoined P6. Raikkonen passed Bottas. Bottas done exactly the same as Hamilton, locked up, the left front wheel locking up, going into turn 1 as it was unloaded, and going across the grass, and he then pitted at the end of that lap as well. Raikkonen moved up into P3 it was at that point. And then on lap 48 we've seen Verstappen pit from P1, but he rejoined still in the lead. Free pit stop covering off everyone else. Bottas pitted, as I say, as well. He was for ultra softs, he rejoined P6. Now at this point Ricciardo hadn't pitted, so he was now P2. So it was Verstappen, Ricciardo and Vettel, 1, 2, 3, and they were separated by 8 seconds at that point. 8 seconds between the top 3. Vettel was even hunting down Ricciardo, who had done about 40 laps in the super softs by this point, and they didn't look that bad actually in comparison to some that had done 20 laps. but again, Vettel this time couldn't get past, despite having newer tyres. That Red Bull just had the traction just where it needed to be, and was just too quick through that second sector where you got the left, the right, the left, right, left coming through the back end of the track, and it was just too much, and Vettel couldn't keep up with him. But then lap 62, oh dearie me, smoke out the back of the Red Bull. Daniel Ricciardo pulls over at the bottom of turn 1, his 8th retirement of the season, more than any other driver this season in terms of retirements. It's been determined, they think it was a hydraulic failure, although obviously with smoke, could be an engine, could be hydraulics as well, but the Aussie was out, and it looked like he was going to go to the end of the race and could have kept that P2 from Sebastian Vettel. And the way this season's gone for Ricciardo, apart from Monaco, looked like it was going to be the same thing, but he managed to make that one work. But the rest of the season has just been awful. I seen someone post something from Austin last season through to now, and it showed you the amount of failures that Ricciardo's had, whether he's had to retire because of them or it's because it's caused him to finish lower down the field or something. And it's just ridiculous. And I hope that Renault get the engine fixed for next season and give him a good car, so that he can at least try and finish some races. But yeah, that put him out. Vettel up to P2, Raikkonen up to P3, another virtual safety car. Bottas pitted during that for his third pit stop, put on the hyper softs. There was only about 10 laps to go, so it wasn't a problem. He stayed in P5 ahead of Hulkenberg because he'd already lapped Hulkenberg, but Bottas was then now a lap down to Max Verstappen. It's just absolutely crazy to think that a Mercedes was getting lapped by a Red Bull. Not seen that for a while, but there you go. It just shows you how much the tyres made a difference in this race. When the virtual safety car came to an end, we heard Max being quite mature on the radio about turning the engine down. He was 15 seconds ahead, so it was alright, and Vettel could likely done the same when he realised there was no chance of keeping up. Heard a funny bit in the radio as well to Vettel. He was told that Raikkonen had done a one-stopper behind him, was still doing 21.6, and Vettel's reply was, well done, which I thought was quite amusing. But it was Max Verstappen taking the win, back-to-back wins. The first time he's won at the same race twice. It was his 5th win in total, and he now holds a record, although he didn't get that youngest pole position record, he now holds the record for the most wins without scoring a pole position. 5 race wins, no pole positions for the Dutchman. But it's his 5th win in total, back-to-back, having won in Mexico last season. But it was Hamilton coming home P4 behind the Ferraris, and Lewis Hamilton matches the late great Juan Manuel Fangio as a 5-time world champion. He is now in the essence of greatness. He is now in the same category as Fangio and Schumacher. Michael Schumacher, the only drivers to have won 5 world titles. Schumacher's obviously got 7 in total, so Hamilton's got a couple more yet, but he's got a good few years in them yet, so it could still be feasible. But that was 5 titles now for Hamilton. The Constructors' Championship still goes on as Ferrari outscored Mercedes, meaning Mercedes have to wait for another race at least before they can celebrate that one. But the race itself, pretty decent race, bit quiet in some stages. Tyre strategies and the tyre wear made the huge differences though. That was the big parts of the race. But Verstappen led pretty much from the beginning. He made it at the start. He controlled the race. We're seeing some fantastic maturity now from the Dutchman, and if Honda can bring an engine that is reliable to Red Bull next season, coupled with that Red Bull chassis, that could be quite a potent package in the hands of the Verstappen next season. Second was Vettel. He kept it clean early doors, made up some places during the pit stops and when the Mercedes were struggling. Ferrari much better on its tyres than Mercedes here, but second not enough to keep the championship going. Raikkonen for a pretty quiet race from the US Grand Prix winner. Didn't have much of the total race pace as the rest of them did. He made a one-stopper work though, doing over 50 laps in the Super Soft, so it was very good there from him. Hamilton obviously finished in fourth now, a five-time champion, but again, another time he's won the championship and he's not been on the podium. That happened in 2008 when he won his first championship, finished fifth in Brazil. It happened last season as well, where he finished seventh, I think it was, here, or ninth maybe. I can't remember. He finished down the field last year as well. I think the only time he's won the championship on the podium was 2016 at Abu Dhabi. I can't remember 2014 if he was on the podium or not. I think he was. But yeah, he's more often than not, he wins the championship. The day he wins the championship, he's not on the podium, so there is a bit of a record for him there. But it was tyre wear, just wearing out so quickly. And it was, despite the fact he got a great start, that was just all that was going to take him out of being on there a chance for the podium. Bottas, similar race to Raikkonen, just no overall pace. He ended up doing 3 stops, finished a lap down. Eek. Mercedes driver a lap down, you've got Esteban Ocon sitting in the wins. It's not what you want to be doing, Valtteri. P6 Hulkenberg, best of the rest again, same as he did last weekend in the US Grand Prix, 6th position. Making up for some of his mid-season results. Remember, he didn't score points during most of mid-season. Quite a lull for the German. He needs to keep this going over the last 2 rounds with Ricciardo joining him next year at that team. So, good result for Hulkenberg. Leclerc in 7th in the Sauber. Another good result from the Monaco driver. We've seen him on the telly on the live world feed, having some good battles about the track as well. He's doing this in the Sauber. I am so looking forward to next season with him in that Ferrari. I know I've been up and down this season. 1 minute I'm wanting him there, and the next minute I'm thinking Raikkonen's maybe a better idea. But you know what? It's done now. I am looking forward to seeing Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari next season. I think it's going to be awesome. Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton, if the Honda engine's reliable in that Red Bull, Verstappen, maybe even Gasly as well. This could be a heck of a year next season, 2019, and Leclerc is going to be a big, big part of that. P8, got to say well done to Stoffel Van Dorn. His first points, I think it is, since Baku, back in April. Long time ago, round 4, or now round 19. Decent run from him. As far as I make out, he only done a 1 stop, so he's made it work and was able to keep ahead. Again, benefiting from the higher altitude, meaning he wasn't suffering with the engine deficit that is usually much noticed for him. But yeah, good points for the Belgium. He's obviously off to Formula E next season as well, so he'll be happy at that. Ericsson P9, solid race from the Swede, was involved in some battles, some good defending from Perez as I mentioned earlier on, but double points for the Swiss side, and that actually put them ahead of Toro Rosso and the constructors up to P8, which we'll come on to when I run through the tables in a minute. Last points was Gasly in P10, started last, pitted on lap 5, and then pitted again about mid-race, but able to make his way through the field. And a decent result there, I would say, for the Frenchman, having started P20, coming up to P10. So, yeah, good result there. He'll obviously be looking forward to next season as well, being in a Red Bull. He's got experience in a Honda engine, but hoping it's more reliable than the 8 that he's had to take so far this season, though. P11 was Ocon, damage in lap 1, seen him losing his front wing, catching on to what I believe was Hulkenberg in the Renault. He was also in the wars later on with Hartley. P11 decent considering though, in my opinion. He did obviously lose a lot of time due to that lap 1 incident, of course. Stroll was P12, Sirotkin P13. I can't really say much about the Williams at this point. The only reason they were 12 and 13 was due to retirements and a poor weekend for the Haas team, which is not something that normally happens. But again, hopefully that mechanic that Stroll caught in the pits was okay. Sirotkin, hardly even noticed he was in the race except when he was getting lapped, I'm afraid to say. Hartley was P14s in the top 10 at one point, if I remember rightly. Lost out in some of the stops, and I get the feeling that the floor damage he suffered with a hit from Ocon has probably cost him some pace as well towards the end of the race. 15th was Magnussen, 16th Grosjean. Both the Haas drivers ran along after their Q1 disappointments. Magnussen looked okay at times, but dropped away late on, so I don't know what's happened there. But yeah, weekend to forget for the Haas team. Retirees, Ricciardo, again, he looked like he was going to be on for a great result, great pole position. Loved his comment afterwards about tripping nutsacks, which is just typical Daniel Ricciardo throwaway line. But when is he going to get a break? And going to Renault next season, I just hope the car's reliable, I really do. Perez out in lap 14, he was running good, ran a long first stint, around about P7, P8 for a good bit yet as well. Brake failure taking him out. Some good moves on passing the likes of Ericsson and Leclerc as well, but shame in his home race. Sainz jumped Hulkenberg, was looking good for being possibly even best of the rest until his car just basically shut down on him, which was a shame. It looked like it could have been double points for Renault, but obviously that's not to be the case, and another disappointment for Sainz. And obviously Alonso, another short race, and 2 races in the US and Mexico, and he's only ever done about 6 laps. Not very much there from him. Get the feeling that the wing getting damaged off the Ocon sliding into his car has probably caused damage to his car, and it has taken him out early doors. But Hamilton's now champion. It is mathematically impossible. Raikkonen's still third, but Bottas is not far off him, and Verstappen's catching him up as well. Ricciardo nearly 70 points behind Verstappen now. That's incredible. Hulkenberg on 69, Perez 57, Magnussen 53. Hulkenberg, if he can just keep it going and get some more points in the last couple of races, will be best of the rest. Mercedes 585 to Ferrari's 530. A decent result in Brazil will get them the Constructors' Championship once again for the 5th time in a row. They've not been beaten in the hybrid era yet. Red Bull, of course, are P3 in their own. Renault are now 30 points clear of Haas, who are 22 ahead of McLaren. Force India are not far off McLaren. I think Force India, despite having their points reset, will be past McLaren before the end of the season. Sauber, as I say, up to P8, Toro Rosso P9, and Williams still on 7 points, rooted to the bottom in P10. But that is it. There's only 2 races left of the season, and the title is now wrapped up. 5 times the champion, Lewis Hamilton. Like him, love him, hate him, loathe him. Best car, not the best car, you still need to do the job. And we can't deny that he is one of the modern greats in F1. Is he as good as some of the others? Different time eras dictate, but he's definitely he's definitely a modern great for absolute sure, and he's definitely one of the best drivers we've seen in recent times. I'm sure if you disagree with me, you'll put something in the comments. But that is it for another race roundup. Thank you very much for watching, whether you've watched it while I've streamed it live or whether you're watching it back later. If you do like the video, hit like, hit the subscribe button as well, so you can see my last 2 race reviews and my season ending review as well. And comment below, is Hamilton a great? Is he as good as Schumacher? Is he as good as Fangio and Senna and all the rest of them? Tell me in the comments below. I want to know. I will respond to you. I'd love to get a wee conversation going. But that is it. Another F1 and his F1 roundup. Until next time, I'll see you again soon. Ta-da.